Welcome to Sustainable Stock, Shooting the Bull, brought to you by Boss Sires. We're not just pulling back the curtain, we're tearing it down. This is where the cold, hard truths come out about what's gone wrong in the cattle industry and what's still worth fighting for. You'll hear from real cattlemen and trusted voices who've built their operations the right way, the hard way, and are still asking the tough questions. Along the way, we'll give you the tools to do the same, what to look for, what to ask, and what really matters when it comes to sustainable, profitable cattle. No fluff, no filters, just real talk that's long overdue. Here's your host, Patrick Powers.
Thanks for tuning in and giving us a shot. You already heard what the show's about: no fluff, no filters, and no holding back. So let's get into it. Joining me today are two guys who know this industry front to back, Grant Vassberg and John Atkinson. Grant, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here, bud.
All right. John, are you there?
Yeah, I got you, sir.
All right. Well, y'all are going to be hearing a lot from them. One of these two will be co-hosting with me every episode going forward. We're taking turns digging into the mess, the myths, and the moments that matter from real cattlemen trying to do the right thing. Some episodes, it'll be the three of us. Other episodes will have a guest. But every time, unfortunately, you will be joined by my ignorance. So,
and one of us did.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Just to add ignorance.
Yeah. Well, hey, ignorance can be valuable in this type of conversation. Y'all need someone green and fresh to this to ask the dumb questions so y'all can give the educated answer.
Well, I think to a point, ignorance has been bliss for a long time in the stud world. It's what's got a lot of people a long way down the road.
You're getting right into it, huh? I love it. Well, I think a good way to start, I mean, hell, we told everybody what we're about and why we're here. So just like the intro said, we're going to give people the tools for if they're just joining in or if they're been in cattle for 25 years, guys. Let's say I'm going to go look at a new operation. I'm going to go see somebody's cattle. What are the flags I need to look for? What sets you off? What, if y'all were to give me some guiding principles right now, what would they be?
Sure. Go, Grant.
I'm first.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I'm one of the first ones to admit that I grew up from the other side of it and then found my way over 20 years, found my way to where Boss Sires is, I guess. But no, I guess regardless, like a red flag today, to me, like, if I go to someone's operation, one of the first thing that most breeders would say was, "Oh, hey, here's my donor pasture," and that right there is so scary because I know, I think it's going on this side of the world and John's side, but your real cattlemen out there, they want to know what their cows are capable of doing, and
so why?
There's no such thing. Yeah, there's no such thing as a donor pasture. Like it's okay if someone wants to do embryo work, but for someone to go and say,
usually
like,
you'd stitch them back into your program that year to try and get them back in calf.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
well,
you want to know what the cow's capable of doing. Like, hey, is this cow capable of going?
Well, before we go any further with this premise, can y'all explain what they mean by that term? This is my donor.
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
It's the holiday paddock. It's the paddock where the big fat weaner heifer or yearling heifer that probably got put on a show lead didn't fall in calf early enough, then fell in calf, and then didn't go in calf again. So because she had one calf as a 3-year-old, that was a big fat calf because they were both on grain, she then became the donor, and she gets the next 3 or 4 years to do nothing apart from give embryos.
So negative things that led to her being isolated are then rewarded by them furthering her genetics.
Well, usually those donors are the big, fat, impressive-looking weaners or yearlings.
Okay.
They're not your most functional, moderate cattle. they're not your 8-year-old that's done it 6 or 7 times and always produced the above average weaner. They are the cow that was picked by the time she was 3 or 4 as being superior due to her size, EBVs, or show ribbons, that then they mass produce by letting her have a few years doing nothing and having no actual draw on her body.
Okay, so is that what people are looking for? Y'all feel like? I mean, do you think that's known that this cattle had no challenges? These cattle and its genetics that you're going to get your hands on had no challenge facing it, or do you feel like that's not
in the marketing pitch?
Is that not valued?
It's not discussed.
That's not a question that's known to ask.
Okay. Well, see, I'm coming at this from a different viewpoint. I'm probably asking odd questions versus a new consumer.
No, I mean, if you're brand new to the cattle industry, then hey, here's a herd of these big, powerful monster cows. I mean, if you don't know any better, it looks impressive. But at the same time, if you relied on cattle for a living, if those cows that were walking around in your pasture, those are the first ones to go to the sale barn because you're like, no, that's the welfare cow. Like, she didn't do her job.
Okay,
but in the seed stock industry, for some reason, people are being led to believe, oh, that's a valued trait, or hey, that's the cow you should mass produce.
Okay,
it's that backwards.
Somebody watching a movie?
That must be John, bud. I was about to say, Patrick, am I missing?
It's definitely John. It's definitely John.
That was Spirit, the horse coming through the wall.
That's great. I'm leaving that. I am leaving that. That is making it to the final. Okay.
Coming to Hot John.
That's great. Yeah. So getting back to that, I now understand why that could be a flag when you walk into someone's operation and they say, do they say this with a point of pride that is their?
Yes. Yeah.
There's no shame.
It's their front paddock. It's the front paddock. That is their absolute pride and joy, those 10, 15, 20 giant barren cows.
And I've had people from Latin America that when they come to my ranch, they'll be like, hey, they'll literally ask me, where's your donor pasture? And I will be like, there is none. And it's a curveball for them. Like, what do you mean there's none? I was like, no, there's no donor pasture. Then they'll be like, well, where are your donors? I'm like, out there, like in the herd. I was like, they're in production. And John, I think like one of the things with a cattleman is you want to know what your cows are capable of doing. Like you want to find out, hey, is this female is she capable of going 8 years, or are her udders going to be blown at the 5th calf or 6th calf, 7th calf? Those are the things you want to know. You want to find out, and you'll never find out if your cow is left as a barren cow.
And I mean, I guess from a buyer's standpoint, I would rather go and see a cow in the middle of lactation to know what her udder's like, know what job she's doing on a calf, and then say, rightio, when she's had her next calf, because if she's got a big enough calf, she should be back in calf. When she's calved down, I want embryos out of that cow. I don't want to go and see these 6-year-old cows that have got a dried up udder that have obviously probably had one natural calf enough to stretch their udder once, but they're all brisket and shoulder and neck, and they've gone fatty over the hips like an old Santa bullock because they've had no draw on their body for years. I mean, that's why, and I was thinking about it the other day, why are commercial people buying those genetics? It's like buying Clydesdale semen to breed a Derby winner. You know, it's why are you buying these big giant cattle when you're just a commercial cattleman? It's so irrelevant to your industry.
Grant, any more to add on that before we roll on to the other flags I might find?
I mean, I guess one other. I'm not gonna say pick on Americans because it's probably relevant over there in Australia, but I know what's sad is like an excuse over here in the United States that I'll hear is that there's some of these breeders will say, "Oh, the cows are so valuable that they can't afford to let them get pregnant for the chance that something bad happens." And like that is such a twisted.
I don't think you're going to be able to explain that logic to me because that does not compute.
No, well, it's true. I mean, there's nothing worse.
Yeah, John believes me. Like
I mean, how bad would it be when you go and have a Houston show winning cow that by a third calf has bottle tits? No one wants to see that. So if you can keep it dry,
well,
you'll never know.
They're not saying that part. but it's like,
but I mean, how many cows die having a normal calf?
I mean, it happens, but at the same time, that's like
not your donor.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a pretty big red flag. If she can't calve on her own, you probably shouldn't be taking embryos out of that girl and mass producing that around the world.
Yeah. Well,
that gets back to y'all talking about giving them an opportunity to prove themselves, not only in their ability to forage and be among the herd, but in their mothering capability.
Well, that's everything. I mean, that's number one for a cow.
Yeah.
Calve normally, raise a calf, getting calf.
That's number one to you. That's number one to you in your sector of the market. But from what I'm learning, it isn't number one to everybody. Number one is what it looks like on paper.
Yeah. Well, no, Patrick, what I would say is that most people assume, like, this is how disconnected the cattle market has, or not the cattle market, the seesawing industry has become from reality, that if someone's new to the cattle industry, they assume a lot of these things. Like, they assume a cow can have a calf, or they assume a cow can eat grass and give you a calf. Like that, they wouldn't know that that's a question to ask if you're about to buy a cow.
That's a fair point. That's a very fair point. I've spoke about assumptions of the cattle market and the buyers coming in with this idea of assumptions on the other podcast. But I've only ever related it to the concept of inputs. I don't know if I've equated it to my assumptions of the performance ability of a cattle themselves.
Yeah, to have a calf.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, my other red flag, when you're talking about red flags, when it comes to buying bulls, the moment, and it'd be the same if I was going to look at heifers, the moment someone describes their cow, either the mother of the bull or their cow herd, as beautiful big cows, that to me is a red flag. A bit like the way PJ described it.
Yeah.
The best description I can have if I ask a bull breeder, what's that bull's mother like? And they tell me, well, look, she's just this little average looking 9-year-old cow that, she doesn't do anything wrong, but she just keeps getting calf. I'm like, that's the moneymaker.
That's your princessa story, Grant.
Yeah. Well, the Honduras female, yep.
Yes, sir.
But keep going, John.
Yeah, well, that would be a big red flag. The donor pen, that would be a scary one. And then the other one we've all talked about is driving in through that paddock and seeing all the dairy cows next to all their stud cows.
Oh, well, no. Yeah, that's a whole other...
What is that flag?
Another one.
It's a black and white flag.
Y'all have to explain it. You can't just drop this bomb and walk away and I'll catch up later.
Oh, John, over here is jerseys. Like, they need jerseys, not black and whites. But they have to have better...
Okay, so if I walk on a black Angus, I walk on a property full of black Angus and I see a Jersey off to one side, is that not just their personal milk production? Why should I be worried?
Well, if she's in a little paddock around the house, she might be a personal milker. But if there's 6 Jersey cows in each of their paddocks, there would be a few alarm bells going off in my head that those mama cows aren't doing their job, so they've got a heap of surrogates running around there topping everything up.
Also, there's supplemental milk producers.
That's all they are. So they'll
Absolutely.
go and buy cows that are potty mothers and will let anything suck them and drop them out in those paddocks.
Yeah, but regardless, it's like it has become an accepted deal that if you're a registered sea stock breeder here in the United States, I mean, I can't say all across all breeds, but in the Brahman breed, it's a normal thing to have a Jersey cow or two running around because it's just acceptable that you're gonna have cows that can't raise their own calf, so you need a Jersey cow to help the mother of the calf do her own job that she was supposed to do in the first place. And it's just, I don't know, like sometimes we call it Kool-Aid, but like people have been force-fed this Kool-Aid for so long that they don't know what reality is anymore, even though it's just common sense sitting right in front of their face.
Yeah. So there's no shame to it any longer because it's become such common practice. But to guys like y'all, it's a flag.
Well, it has to be a flag to anyone that's a commercial person because wherever you are in the world, you can't have a commercial herd and then throw a heap of dairy cows out there to top up the bad milking cow herd you're breeding. You know, I mean, all of this comes back to trying to get people to have a profitable, low maintenance herd. I mean, you shouldn't have to have the paddock near the house so the heifer's calve and you can go out 3 times in the night with a spotlight and check everything. You know, there's so many things like that the seed stock world does that commercial breeders, well, they can't do, they won't do, and they shouldn't have to do. But they're not being properly informed of what they're buying.
Sure. Or they're not listening to this podcast. I mean, it would be a whole other conversation for another day, and I know John would agree with it, but the commercial, like the seed stock industry, which is us, the breeders, we're supposed to be breeding for the commercial guys. Like we're supposed to be breeding the ultimate animals that make them the most profitable. But yet, for some reason, I don't know when it started happening, 20, 30, 40 years ago, I don't know what it is, but it just went down 2 different pathways, or what do you want to call it, to where the seed stock industry has no relevance to the commercial industry, even though the commercial industry is what supports the seed stock. Like that's the whole point of the seed stock industry, and we've forgotten that point. And so that's where you've created this whole hobby breeder / I don't know what you call it, but this industry that has no relevance to the actual cattle industry. I don't know if I said that correctly, John, or I mean that's what's going on over here.
Oh, I mean, I agree 100%. I think that's an international rule now. I think that the seed stock world, unfortunately, you know, it happened here a few years ago. The cattle prices or beef went up, so commercial buyers all of a sudden had a heap more money. And, you know, it became a pretty standard practice for commercial bulls to make $20,000 to $30,000. People buying registered bulls for their commercial herds for that much money. And you saw within 3 years, that first year it happened, all the stud stock breeders put their scalpels away completely. And 3 years later, or 2 years, 3 years later, the just mass influx of below average bulls that should have been decent steers. But because all this demand that was there 3 years ago, everyone kept more bulls to try and milk that money out of them before it dried up. And yeah, I mean, it is scary when you go around and go behind the curtain on some of these bigger operations around the world at what really is going on. And I mean, I just feel so sorry for a lot of the commercial world because they don't know what's happening within their herds because they don't understand why they're getting the results they're getting because they are naively trusting where they're sourcing genetics from. And it's not their fault.
Sure. Well, I guess full circle, Patrick. We can go back to, I don't even call it the laundry list, but I guess one of the next talking points, but of what's going on behind the scenes. But
well, I mean, that's what this whole show's about, is behind the curtain. And there's no script. We obviously are free to speak on whatever we'd like. And so if you've got something, there's no need to hold it till later. Let's talk about it now. If we round back, if the listener can't keep up, they're not the right person for this show.
Yeah, 10-4. Well, I know, John, like, this is like something that would be cool to bounce back and forth between Australia and here. But, like, I know over here, one thing I've been trying to point out to guys is just look at the number of employees there is per the number of cattle. And some of the most famous breeders over here, they might have 50 or 75 quote-unquote breeding females or donor females, whatever you want to call them, but cows. But yet they'll still have like 5 to 10 employees. I'm like, hey, and I'm trying to get people to realize over here that, or get into the cattle business or whatever you want to call it, that, hey, like, you want to match the management required behind the herd that you're buying cattle from. You want to match it to what you're capable of doing. And
that's an excellent point.
Yeah, like, if there's a ranch that has 80 cows and 10 employees, is that really what you want to buy cattle from?
Hell, that even applies all the way down to my size. I mean, I've looked at a couple very small herds to feed into my very small herd. And I've already learned the couple you don't buy from is the retired couple that has hands on these cows all day, every day. They can watch them like hawks. They rush them to the vet at the drop of a hat. I don't need that cow. I need the cow that can not get looked at for 3 weeks and still be alive. And, oh, surprise, there's a calf on her hip. Because that's the level of care I can give.
Yeah, then you got John over there that, but I've even heard that y'all have like an EPD for number of cattle per employee, or that's a thing taught. I don't know if it's an EPD, but that there's a thing taught over there that, hey, there is actually, I'll shut up now. Go for it, bud.
Well, I don't. I wish there probably was an EPD for that. That'd be interesting. But I mean, the biggest difference I think for over here compared to a lot of parts of the world is our staff costs are enormous. So, I mean, most family operations don't have staff because it's simply too expensive. And I mean, it becomes an economy of scale thing where, okay, you get to 1,000 head, then you go, right, yeah, well, now we need a hand because, the husband and wife, it's probably getting to the point where, depending on, and it depends. If you're just a commercial cow and calf man, husband and wife can easily run 1,000 cows. They might get in a couple of helpers for when you do your 2 rounds a year, your branding round and your weaning round. But day-to-day work, really, you don't probably need many staff.
So 1 employee per 10 cows is weird.
Well, I mean, if we had to go and employ someone here now, you'd be spending 250, so about, say, 150 to 200 US a day for that employee. And, when you start to work that out, that you're paying that person, 50 to 100,000 a year. And if you want a good worker over here, you're going to have to spend somewhere between that much, between 50 and 100,000. So you've got to work out if they are going to help your business enough to warrant that fee. And I mean, most, a couple of hundred cow places won't have any staff. They might get seasonal staff in for a week here and there, but they won't have any more than that. And I mean, at the end of the day, the commercial people over there aren't going out and rescuing bottle-titted cows with potty calves. That's it, and they shouldn't have to, and they simply don't. I mean, if you're most of the paddocks over here are anywhere from 1,000 acres to 100,000 acres, depending on where you are, and that, and especially when you get in the north, when you get into that country where all the Brahman genetics is in northern Australia, that you're talking about big country, anywhere from 150,000 acres through to over 1 million acres to a property. And they essentially do 2 mustering rounds a year. Most of them have bulls out all year round. So they do a round sort of at Easter because we get such a wet season up there. So when that country dries out enough for you to be able to get trucks in and cattle are starting to draw back towards water a bit, they'll do a round then, and then they'll do a round in sort of August somewhere there to pull the late weaners off. And, even those big places, they'll have a permanent mechanic, a bore runner, managing couple, maybe 1 or 2 station hands on a big place like that. So there might be 6 permanent staff. And then for a few weeks of the year when they have those rounds, they'll get a contract team of 6, 8, 10 young people to come in. They smash out the branding, the preg testing, the weaning, and then they go on to the next property.
Well, I have another one. What if I show up at a ranch and I see a tilt table over in their working area?
A hoof trimming station?
Yeah. I saw a YouTube video this other day. This guy was so proud. He learned how to trim his cattle's feet with an angle grinder using a flapper disc. And it was just so tickled pink with himself that he was able to do it. And then I talked to all y'all, and you shouldn't own a cow that needs that.
I mean, on Facebook and YouTube, there's a couple of really good, it's very interesting from a structural point of view. You look at, there's, I think, something or other, the hoof guy, he's in Great Britain there somewhere, England, Ireland. I mean, most of what he does is injuries with nails going through their feet and that sort of thing. But I mean, it blows me away what he's able to do with the ugliest foot you've ever seen. He takes it right back to basically bone and then packs it and then puts a wedge under the other side and away they go. But I mean, from a structural standpoint, feet, and this is probably one thing that I disagree with a lot of salesmen, feet are the result of bad structure. So when you get cattle that are bad, and through the hips and shoulders, so all the structure starts at the top and comes down. So when their angulation is wrong up top, it changes all the angles through their hips, their shoulders, down through their forearms, through their hock, through their stifle, into their foot. So if they've got an incorrectly tilted pelvis, for instance, due to genetics, selection, the rest of it, and the only way to really assess that is to have a look at leg structure, but it all comes out in the hoof because that's the soft thing that if it's not hitting perfectly on the ground and wearing properly, then you get all your hoof deformities. And that's the same in the shoulders. You get those cattle that are robust in the shoulder, the bulls in particular, you get some really sort of almost rugged shouldered bulls, and then they nearly knock knee, and then they turn out in the front like an old duck. And automatically then those inside front claws are going to scissor and curl out terribly. And I mean, they're not going to last long. And if you're buying bulls, and you can tell, I mean, some of the biggest trimmers are some of the worst at it because cattle's feet shouldn't be perfectly round, perfectly symmetrical. They just, nature doesn't design anything to be perfectly symmetrical. There's always a little bit of variation. And when you go to these sales and every foot is exactly the same as the next one, it's like anything. I mean, you see anything perfect, you know it's probably man-made.
Well, I mean, look at the wear pattern on your shoes. Whenever you realize that your right foot's heel wears on the inside, it's not because you didn't spend the extra $10 for a better pair of sneakers. It's probably because your knee's a little wonky or your hip's been hurting.
Yeah.
So it's part of
And
your
that's
structure.
all because you'll be different through the lower back and the pelvis.
You're sounding a lot like a horse guy, John. There's a lot of argument there. I've met many of farriers who say they can fix every problem on a horse starting at the feet. And I've met a lot of vets that say that the farrier's full of shit.
But I mean, a farrier is paid every 6 weeks to come and do feet. There'd be nothing worse than having a good-footed horse.
Good point. That's an excellent point, sir.
I mean, it's the same as we talk about anything, any service industry like that doesn't want to fix it. They just want to repair it long enough so you come back for it again.
Well said, sir. Well said.
But yeah, I mean,
my wife has hit me over the shoulder with the word touche written on a piece of paperwork.
but it does. It totally relates to exactly the same thing with horses.
Yes, sir.
And a horse's hoof is even easier to determine, and leg structure. But it's the same thing. I mean, when you're selecting cattle, you need that beast to walk foot in foot when they're walking. You need that where that front foot takes off from. You need that back foot to land on it or almost in front of it. And that shows its ability to smoothly walk and roll through the paddock, and that'll provide you with longevity. When you see all these videos of cattle that short step by a foot, and when they got big ears, you can really tell because their head gets to shaking and those ears get to wobbling, and it looks hectic as hell on the video because there's just things moving everywhere. But it's because they're literally shuffling across the ground.
Well, you spoke on all this during our podcast. Your bull's feet are a heavy influence in his capability to do his job. If he's off a little bit in his feet, it's going to mess with his hip structure in his back, and he won't be able to make his rounds and get up on those back feet and do his job.
And this is where, you know, some of these, the show ring's probably the example because you get to see photos and videos and all of that of those cattle. But my God, when you see those lineup of cattle from behind and they got these big bubbles through their hocks, I mean, it just makes my stomach churn because that is so much swelling in their body, inflammation in their body from A, the absolute mass feeding they're getting, and B, they've got an issue in their structure that they're holding fluid around their hocks. And the judges aren't pulling them up on it.
Well, they don't know any better, John.
I like to expand on that. Let's get into the things that nobody knows better on.
I'm trying to be a dick, John. I'm sorry, but
well, I mean, there's a couple of things I've noticed lately, and this is, you know, the bitching side coming out.
Thanks for tuning in to Shooting the Bull. What you just heard was only a glimpse of the full conversation, and there's a lot more where that came from. For the full episodes, deeper conversations, and real cattleman talk with no filter, join us over on Patreon. Question the noise, trust the land, and don't breed nonsense.